Hello and welcome. So today's video is going to be all about the assassination attempts on King George III of Great Britain. Now, there have been 3 assassination attempts on his life. We know of who done 2 of them, but one we don't know who the person was that attempted to kill him. But let's get going. So Margaret Nicholson was born in Stockton-on-Tees in County Durham, England in around 1750. When she was 12 years old, she started working as a maid and she worked for some pretty important people like Sir John Seabright, who was an officer in the British Army and also Member of Parliament for Bath, and Lord Coventry, who was also a Member of Parliament. So in 1783, or just before that, Margaret was sacked from her job because she had an affair with another servant. She, of course, fell on hard times. Her boyfriend left her, so she made a bit of money by doing needlework. Her brother said that it was around this time that Margaret began to suffer from some sort of mental illness. He said that she would often fall into fits of laughter at night. So in 1786, Margaret began to send petitions to King George III. Now, she sent quite a lot of him. It said that she sent probably around 20 to him. In one of these petitions, she demanded a property settlement and also a decent marriage. So on the 2nd of August 1786, just as George was getting out of his carriage at St James's Palace, Margaret approached him and handed him a rolled up piece of paper. She said it was a petition, and when George took the rolled up piece of paper off of her, Margaret pulled a knife out from the middle of the paper and stabbed George twice in the chest. Now, she did no damage to him because the knife that she used was a dessert knife and they are rather blunt. But Margaret was still retained by the King's Guard because, of course, she had attacked the King. George did feel some sympathy for her. According to an account from a page that was there, he said, "The poor creature is mad. Do not hurt her. She has not hurt me." Now, George had already suffered a little bit of mental health issues in the 1760s, but it wasn't until 2 years after Margaret's assassination attempt on him that he would suffer a major mental health issue. Now, because George had sympathy for Margaret, other people had sympathy for her as well. And because of this, it was actually decided that she would be tried under the Vagrancy Act of 1744 and not for high treason. Margaret's house was, of course, searched, and in her house they found some very bizarre letters. In some of them, she claimed to be the rightful heir to the throne. In fact, in July, she had actually sent George a petition saying that she was the rightful heir. Margaret was interviewed about her reason for attacking the king by the Prime Minister William Pitt the Younger, the Home Secretary Lord Sidney, the Foreign Secretary Lord Carnarvon, and Mr. Justice Addington, who was a judge. So Margaret's answers to their questions were strange. She said that she was a virgin and also that she was the mother of William Murray, Lord Mansfield, and Alexander Wedderburn, Lord Loughborough, which she really couldn't have been because both of them were older than her. So when asked why she wanted to kill the king, Margaret answered that she didn't actually want to kill him, she just wanted to get his attention. So Dr. John Munro was called in to assess as to whether Margaret was insane or not. He diagnosed her as being insane, so she was sent to Bethlem Royal Hospital, better known as Bedlam. Here, she had a pretty miserable time. Members of the nobility actually paid to come and view her in hospital, and she was just treated absolutely horribly. She was subjected to violent treatment, and one time doctors left her chained in her room for 4 years. Margaret stayed in Bedlam for 42 years, even though there is evidence to say that she basically got better years before this. But they kept her in there and she died on the 14th of May 1828. So Margaret's case was actually the precedent for the Criminal Lunatics Act of 1800, which introduced the plea not guilty by reason of insanity. But it was another assassination attempt on King George III that actually properly pushed through this act. So James Hadfield was born in 1771. We don't know much about his early life, but in 1794 we know he was in the army and he did see action in battle. While active in battle, he was struck on the head 8 times by a sabre before being captured by the French. So when James was released by the French and returned to England, he joined a Millennialist. I have so much trouble saying that word. So he joined a Millennialist movement. Now, a millennialist movement believes that a major transformation event will happen that would bring around radical change. They believed that society and its rulers were all unjust and corrupt, and that they would be destroyed by a powerful force. Now, James believed that if he was killed by the British government, then this would hurry up the second coming of Jesus Christ. And he decided that the best way to get the government to kill him was to try and kill the king. So on the 15th of May 1800 in the evening, King George III visited the Theatre Royal on Drury Lane. James went along too, and as the national anthem was playing, he shot at the king, who was in the royal box. James was caught by the orchestra and was taken to the music room under the stage, where he was spoken to by the Duke of York, the theatre's manager, Richard Sheridan, and a Bow Street magistrate called Sir William Addington. King George decided that he wasn't going to run away and hide. He wanted to stay at the theatre and finish watching the play. So this was actually the second time someone had shot at George that day. That morning, George had gone to Hyde Park, where he had gone to review the first Foot Guards, and there someone had taken a shot at him. The shot missed George, but hit Mr. Ongley, who was a clerk in the Navy office, but luckily he survived. So James pleaded insanity. Now, at this time, the Criminal Lunatics Act wasn't in place. So to have a successful insanity plea, you had to prove that you had lost all sense and be incapable of forming a judgment on the consequences of your actions. Now, since James had planned to shoot the king, then a plea of insanity would have been very hard to prove, but they still went with the insanity plea. Now, 2 surgeons and a physician testified that James did have mental health issues that were caused by the 8 strikes of a sabre to his head while he was in battle. Now, after this testimony by the doctors, the judge, Lloyd Kenyon, halted the trial, that James clearly had to be acquitted for his own sake, but for the public's sake, he was not actually allowed to be free to be out in public. So he was sent to Bedlam, where he died of tuberculosis in 1841. The Criminal Lunatics Act of 1800 was then passed, and this was done in direct relation to James's case. So that was a little video on the assassination attempts of King George III of Great Britain. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.